Anyway, let's start, guys. We're going to talk about the new business models to meet cables and ISP future connectivity and digital demand. Now, can you repeat that for me? Each one of you start doing this. It is a mouthful, but I'm more than honored that Islalink was wanted to sponsor this, and then we have Esther here on board as well. So thank you for that. Really appreciate this.
Thank you for inviting us.
And maybe I can stay with you, of course, and maybe you and everybody else after you can introduce themselves and say something about your company. So Esther, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you all. I'm Esther Garcés. I'm CEO of Islalink. All my career has been in telco and IT business. I won't say how much. But Islalink is a neutral and independent infrastructure company. We provide infrastructure to other operators. We started more than 20 years ago in Spain, connecting Balearic Island with mainland and then the Canary Island, and providing alternative services. Before that was Telefónica, the former monopoly for that. And after that, we've developed different connections to Morocco, Algeria, and also with Brazil coming from Spain. And now we're really excited developing a new project, a new system to connect Greece with Italy. The system is called Ionian. And we are about ready for service. We expect to have the system ready by the end of this year. I'm really happy to share.
Okay, fantastic. That looks good. And the name Islalink, Isla Bonita? Or?
Yeah, the Balearic, I can tell
Balearic,
you.
Ibiza, Formentera. Formentera is sort of like Costa Milano, no? Quasi. But they're Spanish islands, guys. They're Spanish. But they're really nice. So thank you very much and good having you. Brendan, please. Over to you.
Yeah, Brendan Press. I'm CCO for GBI, Gulf Bridge International. We're based in Qatar and in the Middle East. And the core of our business is providing infrastructure, subsea cable infrastructure, mostly to carriers and a range of customers, partners, and supporting the development of this region in terms of ultimately the delivery of internet digital services. We've invested massively over the last 10 years in this capability. And we believe we've been able to, if you like, liberalize and help liberalize communities, populations with access to broadband data and services based on the robustness of the capability we have. In the past, it was just providing the connectivity, and that was where the focus was. Now it's about ensuring that we've got continuity of service in all cases, and submarine, like all cable, can be prone to breaks, to cuts, but that's no longer an excuse for not providing continuity of service. We have to always provide that. You need to be up and running. Data needs to be available 24/7, 365 all the time. And also in providing new routes and new capabilities, provide lower latencies, allowing, again, partners, application providers, content providers to deliver services to communities at latencies that are lower. So that if you're somebody wanting to get involved in a gaming experience, you know that your infrastructure capability you're using will provide that latency level that allows you to enjoy the game at its optimum level. And yeah, we very proudly take a role in this part of the world to ensure that, in terms of what we provide, gives customers the confidence that they can have the continuity of service, whether they're using gaming or whether they're using business applications, whatever they might be using. In a nutshell, that's what we're about.
Thank you, Brendan, and good having you. And thank you and congratulations with your decision to be on this panel rather than being on the board meeting. So thank you for that.
Customers always first. So that's what it's about. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. So thank you so much, Brendan. Adam.
Thank you. I'm Adam Godwin. I look after the wholesale business of Telstra in EMEA. Telstra, an Asia Pac focused carrier, well, certainly that's where a lot of our infrastructure lies. We build, we have interests in nearly 45 cables, so a huge number of cables. We have a few new ones this year. Lots of different models that we can talk about. Later. Subsea is about 50% of our business. We operate in areas like the Pacific or down to Australia. It can take 6 weeks to fix a cable fault in some of those circumstances to get a ship to where the cable is broken. So sometimes a somewhat different environment to here, but we've got a lot of experience. We're very interested in Europe, Asia. Telstra is going a lot more global, so we've got a lot more interest in this region, hence being here, but also, you know, connecting to the Middle East and Asia.
Thank you, Adam. Good having you. René.
René de Bademaker, heading up the Experio Supplier Management Division globally. Experio is a company in supplying the enterprise market with global internet connectivity. We do that via an intelligent platform that we're currently building, meaning that we connect people, places, and things everywhere across the globe. I'm particularly interested in this meeting, knowing about new business models, things that are developing in the wholesale market, since the majority of those companies are our suppliers. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you so much, René. So, and welcome, of course, to the audience. Welcome to you again, guys. So thank you for joining us and listening in. So, all right, talking about new business models. Maybe Esther, we can start off with you. Do you see new business models around you? Do we need them? Is it something that you say, well, we actually don't need them at all because we just need to copy paste something else? Or what's happening? What do you see around you?
Well, it's not really new. You know, the market has been evolving differently. Like a few years ago, you just found it most of the submarine cables and the networks itself, the backbone of the network was built by either the operators themselves or by consortiums. But because of the OTTs appearance and their huge requirements on capacity, they started to build their own, and it's a reality, and they're covering up the value chain. But still we see some other different business models like us. We've started as a neutral company, an independent.
As a real disruptor of the market, because that's what I always like.
It was at the time, yes, because we've realized that there is no, for each of the challenges of Telefonica at that time to build by themselves. But if we aggregate demand, altogether it makes sense. It makes an economic sense. And we still believe that this model will last. And it's our idea, and we keep this business model as we aggregate demands of others as an independent player. And we would provide open and more flexible infrastructure for the players. That's another way of building that, and we've tried to build in underserved regions, like we saw in disconnecting in the Ionian Sea. This new route, providing an alternative route, which maybe is not one of the mainstreams or the radar of the OTTs, but it definitely we provide an alternative route. That's our idea and our business model, which is very specific.
Okay, good and fair enough. Brendan, what do you see around you with the business models? Are we heading towards something new, or what do you see around you?
Yeah, I do see. I see the business model changing radically, and day by day we're living in a new situation here where the market is being disrupted. I think it was mentioned by Esther in terms of the OTTs and providers, not just in terms of the capacity demands, but also in terms of their own investments in infrastructure. What do we GBI think of that? Well, clearly, you know, if we were supporting customers with capacities and the OTTs are coming in and delivering their own infrastructure, we no longer can support maybe their requirements as they have their own infrastructure. But this is an exploding market, and it's exploding in two senses. I think clearly in terms of capacity demands, and I never see a forecast which is recognizing what actually happens in terms of the real growth. It's easy to say in hindsight, of course, but what's happening in this space is a radically changing environment where, particularly in the Middle East, where you've got an underserving of the markets, underserving of products, services, there's a potential for significant growth, exponential growth in demands. And that means, I believe, that yes, the OTT players are investing in their own infrastructure, typically through consortia, but companies like ourselves also have an opportunity to grow our business significantly. And whether that's in areas that the OTTs aren't necessarily supporting with their own infrastructure, or just in areas that we have the relationships, we have the local market presence, it's really, really important that we capture that demand and develop our business. And what's that going to be based on? And this is where the other element of change is happening. Yes, in terms of growth, in terms of new partners, but in terms of the service that we're offering. It used to be a case that was very much a spot buy market where people will come in and buy capacities, you know, as they need them. And it'd be a case of give me a price for a megabyte and we'll tell you whether we can do it and whether you're more cost competitive with others. Now, as a market evolves and develops, the ability to have a trustful relationship where you can demonstrate not just in terms of the commercials, but also the level of support. And where instances happen, and there'll always be issues that can arise, you're able to respond in a quick and effective way. And I think at GBI, part of the reasons one of our success has been is the fact that we are an independent owner of our own capacities. And we're able to respond, I think, in a more urgent and optimum way than maybe other consortium type partnerships can do. And if it isn't the case, it should be the case. So since I've come into GBI, I've really much pushed the ability of the business to be able to respond, address issues and ensure from a continuity perspective, whether it be an outage or whether it be about a billing issue, whatever, we're able to respond very quickly. And the market demands that now. It's no longer a case of just, like I say, transacting. It's a case of building relationships, continuing building with our carrier partners in terms of APIs and how we can interface more readily through portals, but also with the OTTs, which are new partnerships where typically, as far as we're concerned, a lot of the time are outside the region. So the market's changing radically, and as a business, we're having to change radically, and we're up for the challenge, and we're changing significantly, both now and will do for the next few years as we address these demands.
Okay, thank you. Adam?
Yeah.
What's your opening statement?
Well, look, I think we're seeing change. I think if I look at Telstra, we're changing a lot in our domestic market. We have a new incumbent formed, NBN company, so we're no longer incumbent. What that's meant is a restructure of our businesses. So when you're a big global big global telco and you've got lots of different businesses and lots of different products, what we're seeing is us splitting those businesses out and really focusing and specializing. So for example, international, by the end of this year, will be split out as a business from Telstra. So we start to look there at product level, or even if we look at individual cable systems, they also have their own business model. They are effectively almost their own business. So if I take, for example, a recent cable that we've invested in and brought to market, Southern Cross Next, which is a cable from Australia to America, that cable was a consortium of 4, the Southern Cross cable. The biggest buyer on that cable was Telstra, but we weren't in that consortium. We invested into the consortium, became the 5th consortium member, and that allowed us to build Southern Cross Next, built in 99, 2000, build a new cable, and therefore replace that route and build a quicker route and a better route with more of the Pacific Islands in. So those different types of opportunity are arising. Obviously, we've heard a lot of panelists. There is huge demand in our marketplace. at the moment, Telstra has invested in many cables, but we can't keep up with that demand. So like I said, if we look at other systems, we've taken fiber pairs with OTT partners. We also seem to forget with OTT partners that we bring a lot of understanding about running cables. Our teams know how to deliver cables. We have great we know how to run cable landing stations, NOCs, all those sorts of things. We know how to manage the ships that replace cables, all of those things. So we have a lot of skills as a partner to bring. And so, I think it's been mentioned before, but those partnerships are also really, really key. But we see them fractionizing each piece of the business model potentially into independent businesses or almost.
Okay, thank you. René, setting the pace, and do we need more business models, new business models? Do you see really changing, or what's out there from your perspective?
Yeah. First, I've got a question for Brandon. You mentioned that the OTTs are entering the space of capacity, right? A couple of years ago when I was in Africa, it was already known that the Facebooks, the Metas, the Googles, the Microsofts were building sea cables and capacity towards the African continent. Do you see that as a potential threat, or do you think that it's actually for the benefit of all if that OTT content is going to be distributed by their own network, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we're grappling with in terms of our sort of longer term business case, if you like, our strategy. Clearly, the entrance of these players in certain parts of what we currently address today, the addressable market will go down in terms of the opportunity, because for instance, the access from Middle East to Europe, many new entrants will be providing those capacities. We still believe the growth will need to provide a level of diversity, and where traditionally we might have been using a traditional route that many other providers were providing, and certainly the new entrants are looking at that sort of routing. We'll be looking at routes where we actually can offer some level of diversity and differentiation. So they're not going to do everything in terms of access, typically, certainly to the Middle East. And I think it was mentioned before, in terms of where we have our strength, we are based in the Middle East. We have a network that connects every country in the Gulf, connects countries like Iran and Iraq. And for the foreseeable future, we see us having an ability to support and serve OTTs as we've served carriers, as they will not be building necessarily at this point in the foreseeable future, the capability to join up those. And indeed, longer term, and we have to prove ourselves that we are a capable partner that they can rely upon. And they might say, right, okay, there's not need, therefore, to provide a network to every country. We've got GBI that can support us on this. And I think, the local knowledge, the local capability here, we understand the regulatory regimes here. We've been operating here 15 years, we're owned by a Qatari government effectively. So, we have that, I believe, that those positive capabilities that these players, we believe, will trust and should trust on us if we can need to demonstrate what our role is in the value chain.
Okay. Yep. So now coming back to the question.
Back to Xperio. Changing business model. No. We decided to create a business model in 2004, providing managed internet services on a global scale. We want to do that as digital as possible. And this is the journey that we're on. So are we changing it? Maybe compared to the rest of the world who is adopting to what we are doing, we are not changing. We're building, and we're building it faster in order to achieve becoming the internet platform, intelligent platform in connecting people and places and things everywhere. We can't do it alone, right? Capacity demand is growing and growing. As providers of capacity, you all know, and we need partners in order to support us with that. And what we're seeing is, and Daniela addressed this during his keynote speech, is the customerization of the business-to-business market. It is something, it's a word that I don't like, but I understand what he means, right? We're all used to Amazon. We're all used to booking.com. We want to have it now. We want to have it instantly. We want to know exactly where it is and how it's moving, etc. And if I look at it from that perspective, and if I'm a consumer and I go to the local incumbent in any country and I go online and I look at a broadband service and I click the speed and I put in my address and I put in my credit card, and the next day a box arrives, I connect it, or even I have the option to add an engineer to it to install it, and in a couple of days I'm live. If I want to organize as Xperio the same service and the same customer expectations with a wholesale department of any carrier, not one in specific, but any of them, it's impossible, right? I need to send an order form. I need to wait until my order is accepted. And then the whole process starts. And if I'm lucky, within 4 weeks, I'll have a broadband, and within 16 to maybe 24 weeks, I'll have my dedicated fiber service. And this is something that if we want to become a truly digital world in serving the enterprise market, it is something where I'm going to need your help as wholesale partners to help me with that.
So what you're doing, and thank you for that. First of all, taking over my job, and and secondly, to throw in a curveball here, because what you're actually saying is that if I go online and I want something tomorrow and I want to go live with internet whatsoever, I have my modem the next day, right? Okay, but it's not possible whenever you need any connectivity wherever around the world with any.
The surprising part is that it's the same company that has the digital journey done for their consumers, but they haven't done it for the wholesale. And that is something that I just can't grasp. Yeah, I understand the volume of the business and consumer is a lot higher compared to the wholesale business, but still, the technology is there. Why not open it up?
It's programming. You don't even have to put
it's copying.
So, okay, that's the curveball.
No, but if I can add something to what you said, I think an additional change is that the data are evolving. There used to be specific nodes. For example, in Europe, there was most about FLAP, but now we're seeing this changing, and we're seeing evolving additional regions. And it's because the data is more and more close to the end users, and every country is attracting data centers and the new solutions, like the metaverse that we will see in the future, and some other applications that we need definitely to develop new routes, new regions to attract and to be more local, in fact. And we will see not only the traditional wholesale routes, but a more spread network along Europe.
Okay. That's one. But secondly, the question is then, or the curveball is actually, like, for instance, let's one of the operators, an incumbent, or whatever, what have you, they have a service which is there on a click, and tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, everything is signed, sealed, and delivered. And on the wholesale level, that's what you mentioned. Yep. It is not. And how can that lead time improve? And now I would like to hear from the operators.
Yeah, maybe to add to that one. Xperio also joined the MEF forum in helping larger telcos to automate and go through that transition, because we think that we do have the knowledge and can bring value in supporting them in that. But it is something that's already there for consumers. And the question is, why is it not there in wholesale?
Brendan. Do you have an answer for René?
No, René's absolutely right. I mean, ultimately, that's where we want to be. Automated systems that allow the trading of capacities at a click of a button that you can change as you wanted, and on-demand services, all the things that we've talked about for years as an industry, but in certain parts of the world we're still struggling. And I think whether it's about the rolling out of APIs, your SDN networks, which take investment, if that's the necessary investment that needs to happen on a critical mass basis, because there's no point in one company doing it and then saying, where's everybody else for this? If you're going to integrate, you need to make sure the whole industry is moving forward. But ultimately, yeah, René's right. We need to get, and that should be our direction and what we should be aiming for. I mean, there are complications clearly beyond the consumer world, where you're talking about international wholesale, that specific requirements by country that do need specialist attention. So there's always going to be that level of investment and time needed, but it shouldn't be, as René was suggesting, weeks. And when he was saying weeks, I was very concerned that he was painting a picture that certainly we don't want to live by. We are reducing these timelines, and yes, there's forms and things that do slow things down, but ultimately we want it to be a 24-hour process, maybe not an instantaneous. That's what our target should be. So yeah, I welcome René's comments there, his help in terms of the world he's come from and how we can do this. And as a wholesale industry, we need to grow up and grasp this and work together to make this happen and challenge each other. So I should be coming on and saying, well, actually, we will actually deliver any orders coming into us within a week, say, and we have an SLA that says that's going to happen, and so deal with us. And that should become a point of differentiation and why customers choose GBI rather than others. Yeah, that's what we're working on internally. But there are challenges, but I'm not going to talk about excuses today. René's absolutely right in terms of where we need to get.
Especially because it's already an existing model, let's say, on the consumer side.
On the consumer, but there are differences. Let's not oversimplify this. I mean, yes,
exactly.
Ultimately we want to get to that, but as a wholesale, business to business, country by country, and some of these solutions can be very technically based and take specific customized technical solutions. Let's not oversimplify this, but as an objective, as an aim, going from what René was talking about in terms of weeks, it needs to be days at the very least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Adam, your point of view on the curveball?
Yeah, look, I think we all as an industry have to aim to do better. I think there are things that we're working on together through MEF, through CBAN. If I look at blockchain development between us, this is something that we're working on. So, but it is difficult. You look at the way we built our products and our systems, they don't necessarily, the data inside most of our own customers has to be cleaned, inside ourselves has to be cleaned up first before we can even start exchanging it properly. As Brendan mentioned, a lot of the things that we do are bespoke and our customers demand that bespoke. So there are tensions here between automating everything and having things designed. And we have to be aware that, for you guys in the room, when I build a system, you're not going to take my automated product and believe me that my automated product will work better than the systems that you've looked at and chosen and thought about a lot and are the underlying backbone of your network. But it is a journey. We do have to aim there, and we do have to try and be better, because paper form, 120 days, these are not what our customers expect, quite simply. And we have to put those customers right at the center of our business if we're to succeed.
No, thank you. And no, because why did I actually want, let's say, sort of offline spend a bit on what René mentioned. Of course, it's difficult. Of course, it's not the same. Of course, I mean, Brendan, I'm fully there with you. I mean, I've been heading up a French telco in Europe for many years, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But the good part out of it is that that we all need to improve with the help of each other, to make sure to stay critical towards each other, learn from each other, and to make sure that we make the best customer service for everybody around the table. So I think that's very important. Now, we just quickly talked about the demand which is there. So, René, from your point of view, what are the current and future market demands and challenges with the strategic opportunities that we currently see? Actually, mouthful, but simple, short answer, please.
Demand is rising.
Esther.
So that was a bit too short. We saw quite a trend during COVID where the generic traffic was increasing rapidly. People working from home, shifting to the cloud, etc. And one of the expectations was that from an enterprise perspective, the capacity in offices would go down. People would be working more from home, so there would be less capacity needed. If we now look at 2020 hindsight, they actually need more capacity. So the behavior of all users has changed. They're all accommodated to Teams. They all want to do video calls. They all want to work in the cloud. There is no office infrastructure anymore, or at least it's less. 365 is online. And people are using more data in the office than they were used to. So even with less users, the data consumption is rising. Not even mentioning the consumer behavior with all the Netflix, 4K, 8K television demands. So we see it increasing a lot. Where we said it 2 years ago that an enterprise 100 meg is now a gig. Enterprises are now going from 1 gig to 10 gig easily without.
Okay. Do you see that demand as well, Brendan?
Sure do. Yeah, I mean, in this part of the world, we still talk about 10 gigs frequently. In terms of OTTs, minimum 100 gig. We look to other parts of the world, and in Europe, 400 gig is becoming the norm. I was at an event early in the week, and these steps are, in terms of certainly growth in capacity. And I think, one of the things we're grappling with in terms of the management of the requirements of capacity is how much capacity is required to servers outside the region, because typically in the past, there's been a case of delivering services from servers in Europe into the region. As we go forward, the growth of the local development of data centers, edge networking, connection, computing means that there'll be more demands in terms of what we call intra-gulf, if you like, in this part of the world, intra-gulf requirements and data. And typically the growth has not been there or as evident as it has been as these markets have been served outside. But one of the exciting things about being in the Middle East and being in a company that's basically the platform for the delivery services is the investment of many different types of companies in having their presence actually here in the region. But just to give some sense of the growth perspective as we see, we see in terms of capacity growth 10, 15 times, 20 times more than what we currently serve today over the next 5-6 years. So significant growth in the capacity demands. Clearly from a business case perspective is the pricing side of the equation and seeing how costs are coming down. And in a market or a region that has typically been much more expensive than other parts of the world, and with regulatory regimes taking a sort of more protective stance in terms of the development of services here, I see that as an exciting prospect as we start to see a little bit more liberalization. Yes, prices coming down, but ultimately, as a platform provider, it's about the experience that whether it be a consumer or an enterprise customer or a government has in terms of being able to deliver digital services to themselves or to their customers, and that might be in social applications or it might be in business applications. So growth is certainly there. What role we play is going to evolve as the new players come into the market, infrastructure players I'm talking about, but it's a good place to be. And whereas in the past wholesale was seen as a dying industry, well, that was where the value was moving away from into the services side. I, having been involved in the service side for many years now, very much on the core infrastructure side, see this being the enabler, the key enabler, and where the investment needs to go to ensure that societies, economies can grow to the level that they need to grow to, and particularly where there's imbalances between certain countries in this region, for instance, an equalization, and us being able to support economies that have got a great growth potential and been underserved today.
Okay, thank you. Esther, what demand do you see around you, and what do you expect for the future? And what are the challenges surrounding those demands? What do you see? What's coming?
Beyond the incremental capacity, what we're seeing is the more and more requirement of flexibility, because in the past times the contracts were more like long-term contracts, very fixed, and most of the customers approach us and look at the collaboration as a partnership, long-term partnership, but they wanted to have flexibility from the beginning. Like now I have these needs, but I know that going to be incremental in the time. So maybe today's capacity, tomorrow is a spectrum, and the day after tomorrow is a fiber pair, something like that, right? So they request more flexibility in the relationship with them, and also to diversify, to be more diverse when to provide solutions. When we thought initially in our business plan for Ionian, we thought more getting traffic coming from Greece to Central Europe through Italy, but we soon realized that this might be an interesting route for traffic coming from the Middle East as an alternative route for the actual one. So now the way of seeing it is that you provide an additional piece of the puzzle and provide diversity is what at least all of our customers are looking for.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, look, I think demand has been incredibly challenging for most parties. You know, I talked a little bit about the way Telstra are restructuring ourselves. And what that meant for our business in Australia, that it's split into an infrastructure business, and they actually sold off part of that towers business. In international, we see that when we become a standalone business, we may well get some outside investment from infrastructure funds or others, just to allow us to get some capital to do some of the investments that we want, because we just can't keep up with the number of investments that we could do. You know, that is a bit of a reality. What we're seeing at the moment is strange. Some of the demand has been, we have massive demand. Some of the cable systems in Asia have been delayed, mainly for political reasons, had to divert them to other countries. So this is really, it's created an inflation in the cost in lots of ways. And it's been very difficult for us to deliver the same degree of flexibility to our customers. So what I mean by that is, in the past, if you bought an unprotected service from us, it went down because there's a typhoon or whatever, you would phone us up and say, please can you restore it? And we'd find another 100G, because we have a very dense network, particularly if it's intra-Asia, it would be no problem. But now you phone us up and say, can I have a new 100G somewhere else? Even though I know my contract's unprotected, et cetera, we say, sorry, we have nothing free. You bought an unprotected contract, that's what it is. But even protected services, 2 services are down, can you restore me? We would always do that in the past. Now we have no capacity to do it. So it's running really hot. And for a variety of reasons. We're seeing customers' behavior change as well. So upgrade of a system pre-bought. So we have nothing to sell now, but when the next upgrade comes, end of this year, beginning of next year, nothing to sell either. So it's a strange situation. Some markets, some routes, prices rising. This will get addressed. It is a temporary situation, but the reality is that it's very challenging. And for us, we're having to place our bets as well. So we haven't been investing so much in our data center business. We are putting it in the subsea. We make our choices. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. René, anything to add to that?
Yeah, there are 2 things that triggered me. One was price erosion or price pressure. and the other one was demanding customers and investments. Like, okay, those two don't match, right? We see global inflation, prices are going up everywhere. If you have a value to add, people are willing to pay the premium price to get the service that they expect. Even in transparent markets like in the UK, where in this case Openreach is forced to do huge investments in building out the fiber networks, prices go up instead of going down. And I know there are still markets developing where price drops are expected, especially on Africa, where there is an abundance of capacity, hopefully soon. But yeah, that's the thing, right? We need to maintain our pricing levels in order to do the investments, not only from a capacity point of view, but also from a service level point of view. You don't want to tell a customer that, okay, sorry, we can't help you because you bought an unprotected ring and we're out of capacity. Even though they didn't buy it, you still want to help them. So yeah, it's a difficult balance between quality and pricing and expectations of the market. All right, thank you.
Just to add,
yes, please.
I think forecasting is something I talk a lot about within GBI, and really, as I spoke before, when the abundance of capacity was there and just about basically having a good relationship with your partner, and clearly pricing that was competitive. Now, it's a case where the supply may be restricted, and you've got to manage a situation where you know what capacities are going to be demanded of you, not in the next 6-12 months, but in the next 18-24 months, because not just that has happened in terms of demands going up, but also the restrictions on supply. So typically now vendors are telling us lead times for the delivery of equipment to support these demands much extended from where they were. We've had instances this year even where we've had delays in supply of equipment that have caused us significant problems. So we've had to get ahead of the game here, anticipating what the market is going to demand over the next 2 years, and we've got in place in GBI now a forecasting model where we, as a business, both technical, commercial, work together in terms of how we need to be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, in terms of capacities. I think the other thing to consider, and we talk about restoration, Adam was talking about the instances where contractually you might not have to provide the alternative when there is a problem on a circuit, be it C cable or other. Our view now is that it's expected in the market, irrespective of contract conditions, that you do have some level of alternative. Even if that's a paid level of alternative, you need to have that built in. So when we talk about our forecasting, what we're doing in terms of demand modeling, we also include a consideration of restoration capacity. And that's something which is quite new to us as a business. We have to consider, we reserve, we outlay, we budget for cost in relation to having spare capacities. So in the instance of something like this year, the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, where we're supporting on many routes our customer, where we cannot afford to have any lack of restoration. Otherwise, you guys are not going to see your football, which I know a lot of people like their football around the world. So, that again, an immediate example this year where we've changed our business practice probably about 12-18 months ago to ensure that we have those restorations, that diversity, that choice, which is what all markets require. And we, as a wholesale provider, predominantly are able to support our customers in a way that's different to perhaps what we did in the past.
All right, thank you. And please, I want to see my World Cup. So you better make sure, because
the pressure is there. Don't worry.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the demand is huge, but it's not something new, right? I've been doing these gigs since more than 10 years, and already 10 years ago we were talking, it's gonna burst, it's gonna fly over the moon. If Africa is really opening up, and then all those sea cables are coming around, and back then we were talking about ACE and all those cables, and look what is there, and then it will boom. We have a problem, right? It's like Houston, we have an issue with delivery, and it's not only let's say the pandemic we had, because of course these things have an impact. Of course, we see around the world things happening which we do not agree on. That has an impact. but before, especially on the planning side and on the investment side, because a huge amount have been invested over, let's say, over the last 10 years. And what is planned, and I know Brendan and from you, Adam, as well, also for the future, it's already. So coming back on the investment side, how do you judge the success of your investment? Esther, how would you judge that? Just the demand which is there, just say, hey, look, my portfolio is full for the next 4 years, and I'm in the best industry of my life. How do you judge it actually?
For us, it's a little bit different, maybe, because we're fully owned by an investment fund, Fiera Infrastructure, and they're not a typical investment fund because they're an open-ended fund, which means they're long-term. They not really need to stay there for 5 years and they sell the company and take all the.
Never say never. I see things happening.
No, you never say never. Yes, but they don't need it. That's what I. Okay. That's what I say. They don't need to do that. So what they looking at is like a moderate returns. So that is very good for us because it allows us to have a more cost-effective and long-term way to see things. So it's the way we're looking at the projects are very, very long-term. And as an additional point of view, which is for us is something to add on, is to help the community to have this an additional route or a possibility to help the digitalization. So that's why we see the investment.
Okay, cool. Adam, because you guys, I mean, Telstra, they are investing a huge amount of money as well. So
yeah,
how do you?
So there is an investment case for every system,
sure,
things like that, and yeah, there's probably various black and white numbers where you might give yourself a tick or not so good. For us, the real essence of it, the core competency though, is about like a measure of our customer success as well. And so, in everybody in our business, in their KPI, 20% of their at-risk bonus, everything is around our customers, and that's been a change. Hopefully, you will see it in our incumbency, dealing even with our Telstra wholesale, which in the past had not been the most pleasant experience, is now we see a cultural shift in that, and we are moving those metrics. So that's a really big thing. Another part of success is, and certainly in international, we're competing with our 5G network, for example, for investment effectively. So a measure of a success is, can we get the next system agreed and up? What we see with us moving off to our own balance sheet, off the general Telstra one, is that some of the pressure that's on that balance sheet, return on invested capital, things like that, we can have a longer time horizon about our returns, and that allows us to do a lot more, because a cable system is not a 6-month, 3-year return. It's got a longer profile and a different returns profile. So those things give us more flexibility, and that's why we're doing it. Flexibility to take outside investment, flexibility to have a longer time horizon on returns. So those are some of the judgments that we make at Telstra.
Thank you. You as well, Brandon, and maybe you can hop in. I mean, you're pulling your wallet all the time to spend as well a huge amount of not only in the cables, but also in improving your service and your service levels. I know. So how do you judge the success? How do you? I mean, you just came out of the board meeting, so give us the latest information.
Yeah, and I was just tabling our latest thoughts on our investment for the next few years, which is multi-dimensional in terms of different infrastructures, different cables. Adam was saying, lots of opportunities out there. You've got to pick the winner, right? If you're in front of your board and you're saying, we're going to back this horse, why is it that horse? Why are you going to ask me to invest X million as a board in this particular venture when noise in the market is saying pluses and minuses, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen? There's a lot of variables out there. So making these decisions is not easy. But that is the challenge, and we have to do that. And I talked about forecasting earlier on in terms of availability of equipment. All these sort of things need to come into play. The reality of the cable being available and when in relation to your existing capacities. My CFO will say to me, Brendan, CCO, what's your utilization stat? How much are you utilizing your existing capacities? And I'll say, well, actually, somebody a few years back, as much as 10 years back, decided they'd invest in this network in this way, and it's not my fault.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
And indeed, decisions that we'll be making, and I'll be active in the next few months in terms of what we're doing. The record of that, how successful that investment will be some years to come. Albeit, you've got to start seeing some return very quickly, and you'll see some trends. But these are longer term decisions. The cable infrastructure we invested in 12, 13 years ago was a 25, 30-year cable investment. We're probably about halfway through that now. The decisions we're making similarly are going to be for investments for the next period of time. And therefore, what sort of capacities require and our expectations, our forecasting again will be really important. But going back to the point of utilization is clearly one financial way of recognizing whether we've got a return or not. Utilization, obviously the cost per megabyte, what we're getting in terms of return. But I keep talking about a word internally to equalize, if you like, the pure financials, and that's back to the customer side of things, which is trust. Trust is forefront in people's minds now, particularly when you're talking about the sort of services that we're supporting as an infrastructure player, as a platform. If a gaming supplier, if a World Cup, if any bits of information drop, any jitter, any type of technical effect on the service that end users are getting or businesses are getting, that's a problem, immediately a problem. So, technically, capability-wise, we've got to build the trust. And that's why I think things like restoration, it's just one element of it, but a very important element. We need to have those plans in place. So if a customer has a problem, we've got a restoration channel. If there's an issue, there's not elongated hierarchies of getting the point to the operator, the service provider to get these things resolved. Multi-country, does it go to one country? Does it go to, there's facets that are complicated, but the better you are as an organization able to give your customers ultimately the level of confidence and trust, that's what will mark you out as a provider. And that's clearly where we're focused as much, I think, at this point in time as we are in terms of utilization of the existing network. Okay, thank you. All right, guys. Let's go to a closing round. And what am I thinking of? Do you have any questions, guys, in the audience? Huh? He's asking something? Yes, I'm asking you. No? Guys, we are so clear. We're the best. It's just the best. No questions. No questions asked. So coming to a closing round, and I'm giving you all the time you need. And Esther, maybe if I may ask you to start. What is your takeaway? What should we look at? And how can Islalink, let's say, support and help us in the industry to improve our business models? How can you support that? And what is your takeaway?
Many things going on. My takeaway is that we're facing a challenging perspective, very demanding in different ways, because it's a huge demand, flexible and top quality, everything as a whole, and with some restrictions regarding the investment all the players they can do. That's why we're facing. What I can say as our aim is to provide and to be a player to help in a matter to some other partners and aggregating demand and providing solutions as we've done 20 years ago, that we do top quality services, which means not only that the service is up and running, but when you have a question from a customer, you have the delivery time perfect. And when they have an issue, because network sometimes has some ticketing, you get an immediate response, and they don't have a big issue on that. So that's why we try to address the market, and this is why we believe we can add something to the rest, and this the dependency, and we won't compete with our customers, which is, I think, for them, they provide I would say another type of relationship with them, and to be open, like and providing an open infrastructure for everybody that can use it. For example, we're building a new landing site in Crotone here in Italy, and we're building it with respect to grow and to be open to everybody. We took the hard work to open a new landing place, and so we welcome to everybody, and we bought another space to welcome to other cables if they want to land in there. So that's our way of addressing the market.
That's cool. That's cool. Well done. Adam, what's your takeaway?
Some thoughts. So in terms of business models, we haven't really thought about the financialization of the internet. So obviously that's happening right in front of our eyes at the moment. I
can't ask those guys sit for another hour. They're waiting already for lunch.
I know, but it's more, how do we think about that? What's happening there? Will the OTTs, Web 2 effectively, what does Web 3 mean? When I've talked to some of those guys involved in Web 3, they seem to be very reliant on the infrastructure of Web 2, really. And so, what does this all mean for us? They're interesting questions. In terms of Telstra itself, we are growing. We're going to grow our network. We're really interested in talking to everybody about that growth. And, we want to talk to people and go on a journey. We need partners. We need to work together. That's the model that works for us.
Okay, cool. Brendan, your takeaway for the audience, please.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote in a few notes here. I think simply for me, it's like the 3 T's, if I can put it that way. First one being trends in the market. What's happening in the market? You have to have a very good handle on the market. What's happening in terms of the new players coming in, new entrants, the reality of what you're hearing, making sure your business models, your business plans incorporate what you see is happening now, but what you more importantly is going to see is happening as a trend going into the future. Critical in terms of how you run your business. Second area in terms of T is transform. And we talk about digital transformation, the buzz term. Everybody's taking their direction in terms of applying new technologies to transform their business. And equally, as a wholesale predominant business, we need to transform our business so that all things Rene was talking about earlier on in terms of being more consumer, in terms of the levels of service we can provide. Technology will be enabling us to transform, but also in terms of mindset. I'm building teams here of people that have got maybe a different mindset to the traditional mindset of wholesale, that have been in different industries, that can have a fresh approach on things, but absolutely transforming our business. And I'll finish on that word trust. I think it's all about delivering what you say you're going to deliver. And in any market, any solution market, you need to deliver your promise. And that means that we do need to invest in technologies, yes, to support that. We need to set expectations correctly. We need to provide alternative solutions when customers find those problems with existing solutions. On that basis, we'll be again chosen to be a partner and continue to be trusted in the services we deliver. So trends, transform, and trust, if I can put it that way. 3 T's.
The triple T. Thank you so much, Brendan. Last but not least, some famous last words from your side, Rene.
Yeah, we always have it on the 3 W's. We know what to buy from who, where, at which cost. So, but that's my thing. To take away from here, I'm very glad to hear that most of you joined my wish in where we need to go to. If we look at Experio, customer first, customer centricity, customer trust, those are things that really define our success. If we're successful at that, the business will grow and our shareholders will be happy and we will go the way that we want to go. But hearing you all in quality, ease of doing business, mindset changes towards wholesale, yeah, that makes me a happy customer, hopefully.
All right, and what can we expect from Experio?
Ooh,
you have 10 seconds.
World domination. No. We're going to continue in what we're doing and being the best in providing managed internet services to enterprise customers on a global scale. That's what we do, underlay and overlay, and that's what we're good at. So we're going to stick to that core business and build it on.
But be nice to those guys.
Absolutely. We need you all.
Be nice to them. So with those words, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for staying a bit longer than planned with us. So thank you very much to the audience. Of course, Esther, big thanks. Great having you here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sponsoring this session and the city tour yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Brendan, next time you're here, right?
I am. Yes, I almost made it. I was in Rome only 3 days ago. So
I know you told me, up front. Yeah. Okay, you couldn't make it, but next time, please. Yeah. More than happy to have you again live here. Adam, as always, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And guys, I know you can go. We go for lunch.